Hello, welcome back to the David Watson podcast. Today I spoke with Mr. J, a relationship coach, a trauma coach. It's all interrelated, and he had some great insights, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, welcome to the David Watson podcast. Thank you for the chat before we started, because it's nice to get that sort of conversation flowing, and it's great when people do, like you have questions. And just for people in the background, we were just talking about the mementos, the souvenirs, and Patsy Cline, and we kind of moved on to the iconic status of some of these people that are no longer with us.
Yeah, certainly. I say all the time, days may be long, but the years are short. So, we've lost a lot of good icons, and, unfortunately, there probably will be a couple more that we lose in the, near future. But one of the things we can do is always try to carry on their legacy for the most part, or some of the, my father passed away not too long ago.
Sorry to hear that.
His name was Dan. And so a lot of times, I didn't do it today when you asked me, but usually when somebody says, Mr. J, how are you? I usually say Dandy, because that's my way of honoring my father by saying his name all the time and then just saying Dandy. But anyway, life is short. On everybody's gravestone, this is one of the things I tell my clients all the time. On everybody's tombstone, there's two numbers, two dates, the date we come into the world and the date we leave the world. And usually we don't have much say in either of those dates. No. However, what we do have a lot of say in is the dash in the middle. Yeah. And that's our life. So make it count.
I know when I used to post a lot on social media when I was doing more coaching and stuff, I used to post every now and again this quote, which is just wake the fuck up, because the clock is ticking and it never stops.
Yeah.
And
no, absolutely.
It doesn't care what is going on in your world, it's going to keep ticking. And
every moment that passes, you can't get back.
Yeah, you can never return to a point in time. Whatever has happened, wherever it's going, it's tomorrow is the only guarantee you might have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But one thing I can guarantee, everyone else is going to carry on. So stop. Wake the fuck up, because the clock doesn't stop ticking.
Yeah. Especially in today's day and age of social media, where everybody has such a feeling of being judged.
Yeah.
And fear is one of our biggest motivators. So there's things that a lot of people aren't even living to their fullest potential now in fear of being judged. I like that saying.
Yeah. The funny thing is, one of the reasons I started a podcast, because I was worried about what people would think. And I was just like, why, how did you get into this position that you're worried about what other people think about you? And people would laugh, because I'm like 200 and something episodes in after 5 years. I was petrified of emailing people, because they would just reject me, and you're sending out all these emails every week, DMing people, trying to get people who've no idea who you are to come on a podcast that nobody knows anything about. But I did it as a challenge to overcome the fear of just people saying no to me and people laughing at me for having a podcast. It was just because like because of social media, you become obsessed with people you've never met having an opinion about you. And
one of the things that I've learned, is don't tell people your plans. Let them see your results.
Yes,
because when I got trained as my field, I'm a betrayal-trauma practitioner. When I got trained as that, I did tell a few people, my goal is to help people navigating the journey from betrayal to repair and rebuild. And I can't tell you how much, how are you going to find people? And do you think people are going to take you seriously? And, and it got to a point when I was laying in bed one time saying, is this really my calling? Is this my field? And I'm so glad I persevered, because now I got 25,000 followers on TikTok, and, I have a full list of clients. So usually it's best, don't tell people your plans, let them see your results.
And that's actually, the great place, because explain to us, I think the worst, it's happened to me, so maybe I'm more biased, but I think when you realise that somebody you love has betrayed you, that there is a pain that I think is worse than losing somebody.
Oh, listen, David, I don't want to offend any of your listeners, but I'm going to tell you something. I've worked with people that have been through a primary attachment betrayal. That's a betrayal with a parent or a child or even a boss, because we can become dependent on our jobs. Certainly our significant other, our partner. And I've also worked with couples that have lost children. And multiple people have told me I would lose my child again, as painful and horrific as that sounds, rather than go through a primary attachment betrayal. And here's one of the reasons why, David. When we are with somebody, we're co-creating with them. If you take a flower, let's just say a rose, right? And you cut the stem in half with a knife, and you put half that stem in green water and the other half in blue water, half of that rose is going to turn green and the other half is going to turn blue, because our roots is co-creating to make something. So when we're with somebody, we are merging our existence with somebody. We are co-creating with them. So if we find out there's a betrayal, then literally half of ourselves almost dies. And that's beyond painful. Now, there is hope and there is good news. Obviously, my job is to help people repair and rebuild after betrayal. So there is good news, but it's a lot of work and it's profoundly painful.
I think as well, one of the things that makes it difficult is you can't go into a relationship, if you're a healthy relationship, if you're holding back from fear of that person betraying you. But and it's the risk. The risk is, if I allow myself to surrender to this, it might destroy me again. And you just and trying to help people to understand that, it's because they've got to overcome it. They've got to get past it, and it's very difficult for anybody in that moment. I always describe it as the problem is, it's like walking outside your front door. Well, I've described it a few ways, but one is like, and this is down the road, but you walk outside your front door and everything is familiar, but you don't recognize any of it. It's just like, this is my house, but I don't understand it anymore. I don't recognize it. And I remember I did a TikTok video once about this, and it's like going for a walk with somebody and then waking up a mile away from your car, discovering that you've got broken legs and you've got to crawl back to your car for a little side note to say, from the person that you loved and trust, that was me. Yeah.
I'm going to give you an analogy I share, actually. So, actually, I have a couple of them, but basically, imagine that you're on a bridge a mile above land, and the bridge is a mile long. And under the bridge is volcanoes and earthquakes and fire, billowing fire. And you're at the beginning of that bridge, and you have to walk across that bridge to safety. And now imagine you have the two things that you love and cherish the most. Let's just say it's a dog or a child, right? So you got your child in one hand and your puppy in the other hand.
Child's gone.
And you need to, and then you're walking across the bridge. And as you're walking across the bridge, the smoke is so thick, it's burning your eyes. So you have to close your eyes. So the only thing you can do is maybe put your hand on the person in front of you that you trust the most in life. They're going to guide you to safety. And so you have the two most precious things, you're holding on to them. You have a very thin bridge. You have volcano and smoke and fire underneath you. You can feel the fire. It's so hot on your feet. And you can't see, so you're holding the person in front of you, just touching, that's going to lead you to the other side. And then before you know it, the bridge collapses and you're falling. and your brain is hijacked. You're trying to look around for what you can hold on to, what you can grab onto, because you know if you fall, you're going to die. And you're trying to protect the things that you're holding on to. And then you look up at the bridge and you see the person that you loved and trusted the most in life. They're holding a hammer. They're the ones that made the bridge collapse. And now you're all confused and you go into a state of primal panic. And you're confused and you're angry and you're sad and you're frustrated and you're scared. That's betrayal trauma. And then you fall and you die emotionally, psychologically, physiologically, but not physically. It's one of the most painful journeys one can ever go through.
And I think it's also because of the confusion, because the very person you trusted with everything is the one that has shattered. And another thing I used to talk about was I used to call it the second breakup. I said there's the moment you find out they've betrayed you and, or left you. And then there's the moment you realize they'd already planned it. And that I found with people I've coached, and I found myself, when I realized that was almost, if not more painful, when I realized, oh, hang on a second, I was the last person in the room to realize I was about to be humiliated. I was about to be betrayed. I was the last person. And that was months down the line. It was just...
Yeah. And the longer that the person was betraying you, the more hurtful it is, because, after betrayal, it's like somebody gives you a 10,000 piece puzzle with 4,000 pieces missing.
Yeah.
You're trying to connect the dots. And this is why trauma changes our brain. Actually, trauma changes our brain in a few ways, but I'll just name a couple. Number one, it affects our hippocampus, which is what's in charge of time and location. It affects our prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of logical thinking. And it affects our amygdala, which is basically our smoke detector for some danger. So it affects many different things, but just for this interview, let's just talk about these three real quick. So what happens is that and I'll give you 3 ways where betrayal trauma is different from non-betrayal trauma, because we can all be traumatized, and many of us have been traumatized with various things in life, but betrayal trauma is different trauma. Again, I'm going to give you 3 ways. Number 1, betrayal trauma is personal. So, for instance, if you lose a parent, that could be traumatic. That could be very traumatic, but we don't personalize it. I mean, unless we plan their murder, but we don't personalize it. It's not our fault. When we are betrayed, immediately we personalize. What was wrong with me? Why wasn't I good enough? Why was I worthless? Why couldn't I be loved? So that's number 1, we personalize it. Number 2, it's a secret society. Again, if our parent passes away, maybe our friends and neighbors will bring us some lasagna or macaroni and cheese, and we'll get cards from people, and maybe our boss will give us some bereavement time, and people will visit the calling hours. But when we are betrayed, it's a secret society. We don't want to tell people the person we loved and trusted the most hurt, because it's a very secret society. So we have to endure that pain alone often. And the last way that betrayal trauma is different from non-betrayal trauma is that trauma, again, let's just say you lose a parent, that affects you today and in the future. Betrayal trauma is the only trauma that not only affects today and the future, but also affects the past. Because you can no longer look at vacations that you went on before with the person you loved. You could no longer drive down certain streets. You can no longer go to certain restaurants or hotels if they were visiting them with the person they were with or dating or hooking up with. So betrayal trauma is a very unique trauma that affects every single area in your life. And when I mean every area, I mean physically, mentally, financially, socially, it's like putting a big rock in the middle of a pond. That ripple effect, there's not going to be 1 inch of water that's not affected. And it changes a person. It literally, I say all the time, stress affects us. Trauma changes us. Yes. So you're no longer the person anymore. And I'll tell you something. You said something that was very profound, and it's true. If you're going to get into a relationship, or if you're going to repair and rebuild with somebody, you have to come to the table with the understanding this person is a human being, they're fallible, and I could get hurt again. Now, I'm hoping I don't. I'm trusting they don't. I'm trusting they're going to do all the work to make sure this never happens again. But that is a risk. If I'm going to stay, that's a risk I have to be willing to take. Now try helping somebody understand that when they're completely beside themselves in the most horrific pain possible. This is no easy journey for anyone.
It isn't, and I think that's there's such a helplessness when it happens, and the big issue is the one person that could fix it is also the poison, and they're going to, you can't go to them because they're going to reject you again, but they're also the reason that you have this gaping wound that's not going to heal, and it's I don't think I ever knew or had experienced such helplessness before in my life.
No, you know what? I don't know if you ever watched an Animal Channel, but and unfortunately they have done experiments like this. But they don't anymore. But basically, or they'll even observe it in the wild, where a monkey will give birth to a baby, the mother, and for some reason she just doesn't want it.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is she will actually punch the baby. She will punch the baby, and the baby's crawling towards her for support. The baby's crawling towards the mother for protection while the mother's punching it. And this is a lot of what we go through. It's like, wait a minute, you used to be the person I went to for protection, and now I feel like you're the person who hurt me the most in life. It's a mind effery. It's a mind effery. What we have to, just to kind of switch gears a little bit, what we have to keep in mind, David, and I am not trying to rationalize, excuse, justify any behavior whatsoever. We have to realize the person that stepped out was also in pain, also wounded, because people that are happy, healthy, and healed do not step out in the relationship. So we have to understand they had pain they were trying to deal with too. Now, they chose the most hurtful way to deal with their pain, granted, but I don't want people to walk away from this interview, with just the mentality of, men are cheating, lying dogs and women are hoes. No, it's much more nuanced and complex than that. Affairs and infidelity.
Yeah, I do think it's difficult because there is a part of me that would advocate for anybody. If you're unhappy in a relationship, you do not owe it to the other person to suffer. And whichever way you decide to make a break is not going to be the right way for that person. Mm-hmm. But you have to advocate, look, this isn't healthy for you. You're suffering. You have to separate yourself from this person, and you just have to suffer the consequences of seeing that person hurting, and they just have to deal with that. That's going to be their life to move on with, and that can't be your responsibility. But that's very simple and that's very clear cut. But it's when you realise, like you say, oh no, they've been having an affair for a while. While you thought you were, celebrating an anniversary, a family do, they had already been making plans to leave, and sometimes I think if I remember correctly, my ex, the one that particular that I'm referring to, I think her plan went back about 2 years. So it was about 2. Really? Yeah, and it was financial and stuff like that. She'd put financial things in place. So she kind of always knew we weren't going to be together, and then we went and bought a house together, And it's and you start like you say, when those pieces of the puzzle are missing, and then when you kind of realise oh right, okay, but I've seen that with people. It's the not that is, like you said, we're not trying to justify. We're just putting out scenarios, but there's the one where, like when people are unfaithful, where they actually just met somebody else, that you the pair of you had grown apart without realising, and they just met somebody else, and kind of things happened, and it was never their intention. And then I think there's the betrayal where they always knew they weren't going to be with you, and they always intended to break up with you. Do you know what I mean? Or they met somebody else and they were like, actually, yeah, no, I like this side of the garden, and and jump the fence.
Yeah. Listen, it's nuanced and complex.
It is.
A lot of the couples that I deal with, they're married 30, 40, 50 years. They have kids, they have grandkids, they have property together. They're about to retire. And then the spouse, maybe had an affair with the CEO of the job, or somebody had, a fling with their coworker, or a lot of times it comes out where somebody had a 20-year sex addiction, but they never knew. And they just found out that they've been visiting escorts and going to massage parlors or whatever the case may be, with happy endings, blah blah blah. And so leaving isn't cut and dry.
No. And
leaving isn't an easy decision, because now you're going to destroy your financial future. Now you're going to destroy your kids and your grandkids. So now and so this is where oftentimes people are like, I want to stay. I do want to stay. But am I staying for the wrong reason?
Yeah.
Am I staying for others rather than staying for myself? But at the same token, if somebody had built a life and a career with somebody, and somebody's together, let's just say 20, 30, 40 years, and now you're about to retire, but if you get a divorce, you're going to live on less than a fourth of what you've been working so hard for. Now you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to get a divorce because I worked for this, and now I'm going to suffer in my last years. So I'll stay. And then they stay begrudgingly, which that's not healthy either. No. So it's very complex. It's very nuanced. But like I said, healing is I mean, this is my job.
Yeah.
Healing is possible. But for somebody that is making plans to exit the relationship, that's a huge slap in the face. It's a huge betrayal. And one of the things I just wanted to mention, David, I don't know if you ever heard of a term called betrayal blindness, but basically that's a part of our, very quickly, it's a part of our fight flight system, our nervous system, that protects us from certain things. For example, it doesn't allow us to see certain things. For an example, let's just say you go into your partner's car and you see, blonde hair, and you're like, well, wait a minute, my partner doesn't have blonde hair. Immediately, what betrayal blindness does, it kicks in and it excuses away that behavior. So all of a sudden we're thinking, oh, she must have a coworker that she gave a ride home to, okay, that's what it is. Or, oh, he might be, meeting his boss for lunch, because his boss is having marital issues, and my husband's such a nice person. He's talking to his boss about their marriage, whatever. So that's betrayal blindness. And so what happens a lot of times is betrayal blindness kicks in, and it serves to protect us. It really does serve to protect us. And here's the reason why: because if we are to lean into our thoughts and think, wait a minute, blonde hair, my spouse doesn't have blonde hair, they might be doing something. What happens is now we're thinking, well, wait a minute, we're married now. We just spent $30,000 on a wedding. We have kids now. We have family. If I leave, now our kids are going to be alternating where they go on the weekends. And now I got to be embarrassed with my friends that I'm getting a divorce. And now I got to go spend the next 2 years in and out of court for this procedure to get a divorce. I don't want to do all that. So let me pretend I don't see what's in front of me. That's all betrayal blindness. But here's the problem with betrayal blindness, David, is that once we are excusing things away, and this is done on a subconscious level, once we're done excusing things away, eventually things do come out. Eventually it all comes out. It always does. And then what happens is you're trying to heal from such brokenness without even knowing who you are, because you spent so much time living in betrayal blindness that you've just disconnected yourself from yourself. And now the journey to heal is much more difficult. It's a big mind effort.
I think you said something there that I think is really important. And it also reminded me of a line that I wrote down from your website, which is: the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for all relationships. Because because of the way you grow with another person, that way that you describe with the two sides of the rose and you merge, you can forget who you are. And you can take on another person's difficulties, take on their reactions to trauma that you're not even aware that there's an issue. You just know that if X, Y, and Z happens, they'll react in a certain way. So you start actually trying to navigate that for them sometimes. Before you know it, it becomes your trigger. And when you don't, like you say, if you don't have that relationship with yourself, that exactly that, you walk into these relationships kind of on fragile foundations before you've even started laying the stones down.
Yeah, yeah. I say all the time, broken trust in the relationship is the big eye opener. It's like, you've been when two people are together in a relationship, it's like they're in a cocoon. You wake up and you get into the daily routine,
Yeah.
And a lot of times you become complacent and, you're in a cocoon. And then all of a sudden, when broken trust or betrayal comes in, that cocoon opens up and it's like Adam and Eve. It's like they didn't see the world for what it was until they came out of their cocoon. They came out of their shell. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the real world. Oh my God. And that's what happens. Now, again, I want to keep bringing this back into hopeful, is that people that do try to repair and rebuild, it's absolutely possible. And it reminds me of, there was a gentleman one time who he was giving a speech, and he was in the best shape of his life, and he was so positive, and he had a lot going on, and he looked really good, and he had a major heart attack 8 years prior, a major heart attack. And he was in the hospital, and he said, I was on my deathbed. I was listening to the, machine. I was on my deathbed. He said, and I realized I don't have good friends. I'm not eating well. I'm not exercising. I'm not what he said. So now I am in the best shape of my life. I have such a positive outlook. I've changed my friends. I've worked on my boundaries. So I'm not going to say that I'm glad I had a heart attack, but it was because of that heart attack I am where I am now. And this is what a lot of couples do. Nobody's ever thankful that they were betrayed, obviously. No. But the silver linings, if you do some work, are, wow, you can become a much better, informed, healthier, happier person if you do the work after betrayal, because it's the big eye opener.
So I'm about to ask, what is the work that you need to do? But before that, when somebody is in that kind of chasm of betrayal, which is like a massive vacuum looking for something to fill it, how do you get that person from that side of like the chaos to be able to actually sit down and say, I probably need to start looking at a plan?
A plan to stay or to leave?
Or just however that recovery needs to happen.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, first of all, without sounding all cliche and nuanced and all this other stuff, you do have to calm the mind. You have to calm the mind, because I talked to you before about the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of our brains, little almond-shaped part of our brain that sounds out the alarm if we're in danger. Okay, but so it's a smoke detector. Here's the problem: if you take a hammer to a smoke detector and hit it a few times, it's going to go off even though it doesn't smell smoke. Yeah. So it might go off at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night. There's no smoke. This is what happens to our amygdala. After betrayal, we have what's called triggers. They're emotional flashbacks, and it's thoughts of what our partner did, thoughts of what our spouse was planning. And what happens is we get in these states of mind where our amygdala completely overwhelms our brain, overwhelms our system, and triggers could literally take you to your knees. I mean, they wipe the wind right out of you. So you cannot engage your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical part of your brain, and that's the part that really starts making decisions. So you really got to work with somebody to calm their brain. And that could be anything from addressing their triggers, which I give people tips and techniques on how to address their triggers. That could be simple things like journaling. That could be simple things as walking outside, doing simple meditations, things that have to calm your brain, because you cannot make rational decisions if your amygdala is making decisions for you, because the amygdala's job is to keep you safe. And when you're feeling the way you're feeling, it wants to either fight or flight. So all of our blood and energy either goes into our arms to fight or our legs to flight. It's not in our head. We have to calm everything so we can start thinking logically. So that's the first and foremost. You got to calm down. Which is why I tell people all the time, David, do not make any major decisions in the first 3 to 4 months. Because I found those first acute months, 3 to 4 months, after that, people just start to, that's it, have their nose above water and say, okay, I need to come up with some plan, whatever that plan is. So don't make any major decisions for the first 3 to 4, maybe even 6 months. Because listen, if you want to leave, absolutely leave. Absolutely. But leave when you feel empowered, not when you're in a state of fear.
Yeah.
And if you want to stay, I don't stay. You have my blessing. Whatever you want to do, I'll support you. But make that decision when you come from a state of empowerment, not fear. So you got to calm the brain. Okay. Once you calm the brain, then we need to do what's called a needs assessment. What do you need right now? And everybody's needs are going to be different. Some people might need some people in their life to pray with. Other people don't have a faith background, so they don't need that. Some people have young kids and they have certain needs. Like, for instance, I tell people all the time, because I work with a lot of single mothers and who are betrayed, and they're like, and I tell them, I say, maybe you need an app on your phone where you can press a button and within a half an hour there's a pizza that's delivered to your home, because understandably you're in the fetal position in bed crying for 8 hours a day, but your kids still need to eat. Yeah. So maybe your needs assessment. So everybody's needs are different. So you have to create what's called a needs assessment. Now, once you start coming back and grounding yourself and start making decisions, now you make a decision. Okay, am I going to try to give this another shot, this relationship, or do I need to make an exit plan? And then from there, that'll guide where the sessions go. So it's a long process. It's a tedious process. It's an overwhelmingly frustrating process. And it's a slow boat to China. And a lot of people are like, I need to heal now. But I'm going to tell you something. One of the things I tell people, David, healing sucks. It does.
Yeah.
Not going to be healing sucks. But the journey of this healing is more important than the destination, because it's in the journey that you discover who you are.
Yeah. I think it's like you said something earlier about cliches, and the problem with cliches is we've overused them so much we forget about the element of truth in them, the core of their root. It is truth, and you can't create a sculpture without chipping off a few rocks, and there are all of these analogies which, and as I refer to them, Pinterest sunset quotes, and but if it resonates with you in that moment, that's what matters. And it's when people like time heals everything, they're not referring about tomorrow. They're actually telling you that eventually you will heal in time. The clue is time. It's going to take it. There is no rush. There's no magic formula. And I think another thing that gets people down is comparisons, because some people seem to recover quickly. So you start, so what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. People think differently. One person's trauma is another person's excitement. It's, you can't pigeonhole yourself into it has to be this way. We have to come out. This is how it's supposed to be done. And I think as well is going back to something you said earlier about the jigsaw puzzle, and it's 10,000 pieces and you've only got 4,000 of them. I don't think people really understand or grasp that concept. That I remember a really good friend of mine, sadly he's no longer with me, we used to share a flat together when we lived in London, and I remember I was struggling with this relationship where I'd broken up with someone, and he made me understand something that I'd completely dismissed. He said, one of the problems you've got is you were with that person for 5 years. He said every reference in your library of memories, decision making, everything is a reference to that person. Getting up in the morning is a reference to that person. Holidays is a reference to that person. He said there was nothing in your life that your subconscious doesn't reference that person as it navigates its way to the answer or the solution or the problem. He says it's going to take time to build a new reference library.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, and it might take 2 or 3 years, because until you do your next holiday, buy your next car, go clothes shopping, go and see a few films at the cinema, go and build up another social circle of friends, until you do that, you do not have a reference library that your brain can access without going down a path that includes that person. You know, didn't heal the pain, but logically I was able to process, this is why I'm confused, this is why I feel vulnerable, this is why sometimes it's like agonizing, like why does this person pop into my head every time I'm trying to think about something? Well, because that's the reference library that you have.
Absolutely. And when I was saying before, when we co-create with somebody, so much of us enmeshes with them, even on a habitual level. It's like, oh, it's 3:00. I got to leave to go pick up somebody so-and-so from work. Oh, wait a minute, we're not together anymore.
Yeah.
And then that's a reminder. So even habitually, like in so many areas of life, absolutely. And I will say this, absolutely, time can heal wounds, but I'd like to say healing time can heal our wounds, because it's like this. If we don't do work and we just let time go by, trauma is like trauma is like a ball of lava in our body. We have to address it. We have to like knead it out. When you like take a package of something, you got to knead it. I don't know what they call it. If you have that word, knead.
Yeah. Just like kneading dough for bread.
Yes, 100%. You have to knead the trauma within your body to release it and let it go. So just dealing with, because a lot of people, David, like to just numb and distract and avoid pain. Oh, let me go use drugs, let me go drink, let me go watch TV endlessly and binge watch my favorite shows, whatever. That's letting time go by, but it's not healing. So we have to do the healing work, and healing time absolutely will cure wounds. But I like the analogy, and it's so right, the reference, because I don't know if you guys have the old library system where you pull out the Dewey Decimal cards and there's like 1,000. That's it. And to start replacing those references, there's 10,000 cards in there. And so if you replace even a card a day, that's a lot of days. You got to have a different reference. It does take a lot of time, and people just want a pill, and I get it, because betrayal is fucking painful. Oh my God, I'm so sorry to swear.
No, it's an adult podcast. It's fine. You can swear as much as you want. Okay,
no, I don't. This is painful. People want to take a pill and say, I just want to remove my brain. I want to remove my pain. And this is a painful process. So yes, we have to have a different reference, but man, in the meantime, that pain is almost unimaginable, unbearable.
How are you able to help people though? Because in the sense of like doing the work, recognizing, because there's nothing worse than when you think. Songs are the worst, I think. Sometimes it popped into my head. There's this, as soon as we were talking about, there's this song, and it's got to be 1997 or something like that. If I hear that song, I think of that person. And ironically, the song is about betrayal. But it is just, I remember many years hearing it, and it was just like I was almost taken back there. It's just like, to the old flat, and I was like, oh my God, where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, because we associate, through association, we compartmentalize things, listen, everything is a reminder and triggering right after a breakup or betrayal. Certain smells. You can smell, it doesn't matter, fried rice. You can be, oh my God, so-and-so's favorite food was fried rice, or you can smell a certain perfume and cologne and say, oh my God, they used to wear that. You can drive down the street and see certain billboards, and that could be reminding you or triggering. Songs, oh my God. And especially there's so many songs about betrayal and
Mm.
breakup and love. And it's all about that. Certain shows, certain movies, certain places. You are in a fish tank surrounded by a world of reminders. One of the things, to answer your question, that I really try to spend a lot of time on helping my clients is to reframe their inner dialogue,
Yeah.
change their narrative. Because I will say this, betrayal hits us at our core insecurity. Our core insecurities are usually traumas or stressors or what have you, dysfunctions that set in when we were younger,
Yeah.
whether that's childhood issues, childhood trauma, development. And so what happens is, hypothetically speaking, let's just say that we had an experience in our home where we thought we were attractive, or we thought we were worthless, or we thought we were whatever. The minute we're betrayed as adults, that immediately hits that, and we're like, oh, I am worthless. I am ugly. I am. It's almost like a confirmation. So when we have, so I try to go in and dig deep to uncover and unravel and start to heal those narratives that we believed when we were younger, that really wipe out the foundation of the pain to begin with, because there's no connection now with what somebody did, whatever. And then number two, try to reframe your thoughts, including a lot of the mindset that I hear all the time is, oh, so and so just wanted their pecker wet, or so and so just wanted their cake and eat it too.
Mm.
So well, wait a minute, is that fact or is that feeling? Because a lot of times we put our feelings onto things that's not fact.
Yeah.
And when you talk to somebody who stepped out, and one of the things that I try to do with the person who stepped out is what's called finding their why.
Mm.
Why did you do this? And when I work with somebody, the goal is I want them to understand it starts with you and it ends with you, and it was before you even met the person you're with. So your why needs to start, because I always say affairs and infidelity and betrayal start in childhood. That's number one. Number two, what was your why? What was going on inside of you? What happened to you that set up the components to what made you do this decision? And I don't want to hear my partner wasn't giving me sex. I don't want to hear, no, because what the setup of this happened before you even met your partner. So I try to find their why. And then eventually on the healing journey, if somebody is trying to repair and rebuild broken trust, then I start talking to the partner of, is there any way you could get into the field of understanding, not liking, not loving,
Yeah.
not accepting, not just understanding. Oh, this person had so much self-hatred, they were trying to get validation from somebody else and it wound up in an affair. Or this person just got into a rut and they have avoidance tendencies, so instead of talking to me about it, they went out and wanted to feel alive with somebody else. Again, nothing's excusable, nothing's justifiable, whatever. And then eventually down the road, if it calls for it, this could be difficult for many people, is to see if we can go into compassion.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't, and I understand that, because really compassion and resentment can't be in the same bowl.
No.
And a lot of people that were hurt have resentment. So can we try to look into compassion? Not compassion for their behavior, compassion for their being. So it's a journey.
It is. It's difficult because ultimately you've kind of. It's cliche. You have to forgive yourself before you can forgive the other person, because
And you have to define what forgiveness is.
Yeah,
before then.
that's exactly it. You actually, that's a really good point. You do actually have to kind of understand what part of you needs to heal and why it needs to heal. Do you mean it's just like, oh, so yeah, but which bit? Because there's parts of you that won't care about certain things. It's some people. You care about how it ended for different reasons, or how the betrayal happened for different reasons. We're not all motivated or triggered the same way, and sometimes you have to figure out actually which bit of this is the bit that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or which hurt is still fueling the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, what's difficult is if you have somebody that left the relationship, you're left on your own to deal with all of this with no answers.
Yes.
But then there's another difficult journey. Even if the person stayed or decides to stay, they're a wounded, hurt person too, and they might not be able to give you all that you need. And then what's happening is your nervous system is seeing this person, you're living with this person, you're under the same roof with this person, possibly still engaged with sex with this person. It's almost like you're sleeping with the enemy. It's like, well, wait, I'm trying to rebuild with this person, I'm trying to repair with this person. But at the same token, every breath they take is triggering to me because they're the person that hurt me the worst. So this is not, I'm telling you, if anybody's listening to this and they're contemplating stepping out of a relationship, just don't. Leave it first if you're going to do that. Leave it. Because I always say this. Very few people, unless you have a hard plan to leave something, very few people plan to get into an affair. But at the same token, for an affair to happen, needs to be 1,000 mini and micro justifications.
Yeah.
Don't allow yourself that first justification, because then the rest of them are like dominoes.
And there's something you said as well, and I just want to pick up on when we're looking for answers. And I always caveat this for people to be careful, because your partner doesn't have any answers, not ones that are going to help you. And the reason, and this is why I caveat it, because they're going to do one or two things. Their answers are going to either to be, I don't want to hurt you anymore. So their version of the truth is not the version that happened to you. It's from their point of view, from the person that has done it. And whatever their answers to your questions are either going to be, I don't want to hurt you anymore. So they're going to try and navigate a way of breaking those answers down to as compassionate as possible. And that's not going to be the truth. Or they think you're a piece of shit and they're going to hurt you. Mm-hmm. Either way, you're not going to hear anything that's going to take away what's happened to you. So whilst you have to talk and while you have to explore, or like you said, if they've left and you're on your own, it's getting out of that mindset again, which takes time. They don't have any solutions for you. Yeah.
It's like this. Let's just say I'm completely broke, right? I am poor. I have no money. And I come in and I take $1,000 from you, right? Okay. So now what's going to happen is a year later, when you discover that, you're going to say, Mr. J, not only do I want $1,000 back from you, but now I want restitution. I want, all this. I don't have $1 to give you, yet you want 1,000. So you're coming to the very person who has nothing. Now, I understand I took from you, and I understand I hurt you, and I understand I betrayed you, but I don't have the answers. I don't have the money. So you're right. You're absolutely right. Now, this is why I say, for the people that did step out, give what you can. If that's remorse, give remorse. If that's an apology, give an apology. If that's somehow making your partner feel safe again, whether that's making sure that you give them your phone when you go to the store, or you can give them you can't give them what they need and all their answers. But if you're going to stay and repair, give them all that you can give.
Okay.
That's how we start that process.
Just a couple of questions. I'm conscious of time. Something that I've always felt that people, if I had a superpower, like if you had a superpower, what would it be? Mine has always been, if I had a superpower, I'd like people to be able to give people self-esteem, because I think self-esteem, anybody that has something, I've always noticed, if somebody has good, healthy, high self-esteem, they have no problems with boundaries with people, because they just, no, I don't allow people to do that to me. How would you, from your perspective, when somebody comes to see you, and whether it is because it's that humiliation element, isn't it? Is that it's not just that you feel vulnerable, you feel completely humiliated, like the whole you were laughing,
bamboozled.
Yeah, like
Cool.
the whole world is laughing at you. How would you suggest somebody takes those little stepping stones one at a time to rebuild their self-esteem?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good question. One of the things I try and tell people is, first of all, you have to get it completely out of your head, any fault or responsibility of yours for their decisions. Now, you can take 100% responsibility in how you showed up in the relationship, and you should, but you take zero responsibility on how you were betrayed. Because that's the first, this is why I say before that we take it so personal. Did I gain weight? Was I not attentive? Was I not maybe all that's true, but they still made decisions. It's like this. If there's a gun right now on your shelf and nobody touches it, that gun doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
If you load bullets into that gun, if you jam-pack that gun with bullets, but nobody picks it up, it's still not going to hurt anyone. It's only when somebody makes the decision to pick up that gun, pull the trigger, aim, fire, and shoot, that's when people get hurt. So, maybe you could tell yourself, maybe I wasn't the most loving in a relationship. Maybe I didn't show up the way I did. Maybe I did get a little comfortable and complacent. Maybe I should have did the dishes more. Maybe I should have asked her how her day was, or him, or whatever. Okay, that's all fine. That's relationship stuff. That was you loading the gun. But that person still had options. They could have came and talked to you and said, I'm not happy. They could have came and said, we need, professional help. They chose one of the most hurtful ways to deal with their pain, and that was to hurt and betray you. And you can't take any responsibility. So the first thing to do to increase somebody's self-awareness, self-respect, is completely address immediately anytime you feel that this is your responsibility. That's number one. Number two, if there's any capacity for somebody to understand or have compassion, that also takes away any ownership, which helps with self-confidence. But I'm going to tell you something. Self-confidence is built like pebbles and raindrops. Pebbles eventually make mountains and raindrops make seas. One of the first things that I have couples do is say, okay, what can I count on? Well, I can probably count on the sun coming out tomorrow. Okay, the sun's going to come out tomorrow. Okay, then start verbalizing and vocalizing your intentions and follow through on the small things. For example, today I'm going to go to the store at 2:00 and buy bread. And then you go to the store at 2:00 and you buy bread. That's going to make yourself feel, you know what, I can trust myself. And when you trust yourself, it increases your self-confidence. Now, people might be thinking, well, Mr. J, that's kind of stupid. You can go to the store anytime and buy bread. Yes, it is, but it's about keeping your word. I'm going to shower tonight at 7, and then you shower tonight at 7. Show yourself that you're worth keeping your word. Even if somebody didn't keep their word, you're worth promises, whatever. And you just start very, very small. You start very, very small. I also encourage people to do what's called a gratitude journal. And I don't just mean what I'm thankful for. I actually took a course at UC Berkeley on the science of happiness. And one of the things I said is there's a direct correlation between self-confidence and happiness and gratitude. And so what people do is if you write down every day or whatever, a couple times a week, 3 things you're grateful for, but 3 reasons why for each, that starts changing the neural pathways in your brain. That starts increasing your self-esteem. So for example, one of them could be, I'm thankful for my nose. Okay, well, 3 reasons. Well, number 1, if I ever smell smoke, they keep me safe. I run. Number 2, if I turn to my side, I like my profile. My nose helps me there. Number 3, if I ever bake cookies or pizza, I really enjoy the smell of my creation. So 3 reasons why you are grateful for your nose. And then the next thing you're grateful for, and 3 reasons why. This actually changes the neural pathways in your brain. So there's a lot of different tips and techniques, but I'm going to tell you something. One of the things that I find it difficult for people to do, not to hear tips and techniques, not to thank me for them, but to actually leave the session and apply them.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's like I said, one of the things that frustrated me when I coached is you could have a great conversation with somebody. I could go away thinking, I've actually helped that person. And
Yeah.
then they'll come back, you'll see them the following week, and they have, oh, well, I didn't have time. I didn't. You like, your life is falling apart, which is why you come to me. I can't create value in your value for you. You have to take, like I said, those little steps, tiny little stones. It's nobody's looking for big grand gestures. I mean, I love that. Just make a commitment. I'll have a shower at 7. I'll go to the shop and have bread at 2, and buy bread at 2 o'clock. Like you say, but people are always trying to get the fast food McDonald's fix. And and that, if unless it's a big gesture, but it's just like, look at the world's finest cathedrals. Somebody had to dig the hole first to put the foundation stone down. It was one stone at a time. Anything magnificent is built one stone at a time. That's
And think about it. We don't go to the gym with a workout coach or whatever they're called, a trainer.
Yeah.
And then when the trainer says, okay, come back in a week and make sure you do some of the exercises throughout the week you can't come back and say, sorry, I didn't have time. Well, do you want to heal? Do you want your goals met or what?
Yeah.
Same thing. I take voice lessons, and my voice teacher tells me all the time, listen, throughout the week, practice what we practiced, and then come back and we can learn what. If I come back and I say, no, I didn't sing it all, then you're just throwing money at me. You're not improving. Yeah. And it's the same thing.
It is.
If you're not going to apply what's said throughout the week, you're just going to come back and we're going to repeat the same things.
And there's a clue in the title, self-worth. It's about you showing yourself what you're worth. The clue is actually in the word. But my last question, as we finish up, which is pretty random, and I think I know part of the answer already, but I like to ask it of everybody. I want you to imagine you have a time machine. The time machine is a vehicle of your choice from any era. Where would you go? What would you see? And what would be playing on the radio?
Have you ever watched Peabody and Sherman?
Yeah, I remember that from as a child. Yeah. We didn't get much of it in the UK, but yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Well, there was a machine on that show, and it was called The Wayback. So I probably would want to go back somewhere, maybe to see exactly what Mona Lisa was doing while she was being painted.
Nice.
What would be on? Well, there wouldn't be a radio.
No, but it's imagination, so you can have a radio on whatever you want.
Yeah. I would probably want to be in a state of relaxation. And I don't know if you are familiar with the artist Lorena McKennitt.
No.
Okay, well, for you or anybody listening, Lorena McKennitt, it's spelled Loreena McKennitt. She's a Canadian singer. She sings a song called The Lady of Shalott. And it's the most beautiful song with a beautiful voice. The Lady of Shalott by Lorena McKennitt. I would like to sit there and just watch Mona Lisa being painted while listening to The Lady of Shalott. Maybe sipping on a cup of whatever they called coffee back then, or hot chocolate.
Mr. J, I love that. Thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, David, for your time. Appreciate you.
There you go. And that was my conversation with Mr. J. Emotional trauma from breakups, from betrayal, it can impact you in ways that you can't comprehend. It can take you down a path that you never knew existed. And if it is happening to you right now, if this has happened to you, if you are still suffering, I have 2 requests. Please do not do anything rash. Just give yourself some time, some days, some weeks, please. The second one is go and book a session and a few sessions and talk to somebody. Because you can feel vulnerable, you can feel helpless, you can feel like it's not going to ever end and that your life is over. And you will massively underestimate the value of sitting down and just telling somebody what happened to you and how you feel about it. And that being said, wherever you are, whatever you believe, please do take care. Go and see someone. Be blessed. Thank you.